On this Civic, P0456 is an EVAP system leak code. In plain language, the PCM may be seeing the fuel tank pressure response after shutdown fall outside what it expects for a small leak condition. The customer may only notice a check engine light, and the vehicle may otherwise drive normally. The broad fault areas can include EVAP hoses and lines, canister-side sealing, the vent shut valve, the fuel fill area, the shut-off valve area, or the tank itself. Treat any other stored codes as context and check what they mean before you commit to this path. Before you start, use a structured diagnostic approach and keep the EVAP system limits in mind. Do not improvise extra pressure or vacuum on this system. Excessive pressure or vacuum can damage EVAP components or eventually damage the fuel tank. Fresh fuel helps the system create pressure and vacuum for leak detection, so the preferred condition is less than a full tank of fresh fuel. If possible, add 1 gallon of fresh fuel just before testing, as long as that does not fill the tank. Start by turning the vehicle to the on mode. Then run the HDS function test. If that test result is not okay, the failure is duplicated, and now you can move into the leak isolation checks instead of guessing at parts. First, inspect the EVAP canister vent hose. Set up the inspection with the vent hose disconnected, then check the hose for any blockage or restriction. A normal hose has no blockage and no restriction. If this check is abnormal, the problem is in the EVAP canister vent hose area. Next, move to the EVAP canister purge line visual inspection. Look for poor connections or damage between the EVAP canister purge valve and the EVAP canister. Also check the canister, FTP sensor, vent shut valve, and O-rings for damage. Normal is good connection condition with no damage. If this inspection is abnormal, stay with the parts on the EVAP canister purge line. Now test the EVAP canister purge line. Disconnect the EVAP canister vent hose and the fuel vent tube from the EVAP canister and plug each port. At the engine compartment, disconnect the vacuum hose or purge line from the EVAP canister purge valve. Connect a vacuum pump and gauge 0-30 in HG to that hose. Turn the vehicle to the on mode. Apply vacuum only until the HDS FTP sensor voltage reads 90 V-0, 59 in HG-15, 1 mmHg. Be careful not to exceed that vacuum because the FTP sensor can be damaged. Hold the reading for 1 minute. Normal is that FTP sensor voltage does not increase more than 0, 2 V0, 1 in HG2, 5 mmHg. If it fails that hold test, the problem is in the parts on the EVAP canister purge line. Only move to the EVAP canister vent shut valve test after the EVAP canister purge line has passed. Disconnect the fuel vent tube from the EVAP canister and plug the port. Then disconnect the purge line from the EVAP canister purge valve in the engine compartment and connect the 0-30 in HG vacuum pump and gauge to that hose. Turn the vehicle to the on mode and command HDS CVS on. Apply vacuum until the FTP sensor voltage reads 90 V-0, 59 in HG-15, 1 mmHg. Again, do not exceed the specified vacuum because the FTP sensor can be damaged. Watch the FTP sensor voltage for 1 minute. Normal is that it does not increase more than 0, 2 V0, 1 in HG2, 5 mmHg. If this test is abnormal, the problem is in the EVAP canister vent shut valve. If the canister side checks are normal, move toward the fill side. Visually inspect the fuel fill pipe and the fuel tank vapor recirculation tube for poor connections or damage. If that is abnormal, the problem is in the fuel fill pipe or the vapor recirculation tube area. Next, with the misfuel inhibit device removed, visually confirm the shut-off valve is closed. If it is not closed, the problem is in the main flap unit. Then, still with the misfuel inhibit device removed, inspect the flap seal and the mating surface of the shut-off valve for missing or damaged seals. If that is abnormal, the problem is also in the main flap unit. If all of the earlier inspection items show normal condition, the remaining fuel tank is determined to be the cause. Keep verification separate from the testing work. After the fault area is corrected, verify the repair and confirm the code stays gone. One practical caution: if your diagnostic path calls for purge valve checks but the exact test steps are not available, pause, recheck the earlier diagnostic path, and avoid guessing. The key on P0456 is to prove where the EVAP system loses its pressure response. Start with the scan tool result, then isolate the vent hose, purge line, vent shut valve, fill side parts, shut off valve sealing, and finally the tank only after the earlier checks pass. For more diagnostic training, visit Diagnostics.com.